Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about something that I would like the not so computer literate to know. So let's get into it. So the question in question is basically, Frederick, what is something that you wish people who are not so good with computers would understand as a programmer? Well, this is a very good question, and it's a tough one as well, because there are so many things that, like these small little things that would make things so much easier if people kind of understood. But I've picked one of my favorites, and I don't think this is unique in any way to software development. I think that this is something that that this applies to pretty much any field where you craft something, or well, it's not actually just crafting. I think it applies to any field whatsoever. I spoke to my friend yesterday who is a security guard, and he was explaining to me that he has had more than one occasion where people who they've just walked up to him and said, how does it feel to work you have a job where you do nothing? And he told me that at the specific time when this woman came up and asked him, just overtly, basically insulted him, he just had this flashback to all the times he's been chasing down a suspect, or investigating a crime together with the police, or helped drug addicts who have overdosed and called the ambulance, or put compression on a wound from a person who's been in a knife fight. All those times he's been part of either saving somebody's life or reducing risk, or like stopping a crime of some sort. And then and this is why we are friends. And then he just looked at this person and said, yeah, no, I don't know. I suppose it's fine. It feels okay. He didn't feel the need to crush this pathetic little person's question. But it's a very similar situation for us, I would say, in software. There is this world where we are in this kind of situation now, and I will argue that it came around back in a few years back when a few of the large IT companies introduced this idea of making people expect everything for free, where we have this issue now where people have grown up and are kind of accustomed to that high quality software. They don't even understand what it actually is. And they expect it for free. And this is a big problem. Like basically today, it's quite hard to find a viable, as a startup, it's a lot harder these days than you would expect to actually make a profit from your company, especially like in the game industry. It's the same sort of thing. That's why we have these concepts of freemium and things like that, because people expect, like they just almost instinctively expect things to be for free, especially in the mobile landscape. And this idea that you need that things should be free, and that there's no understanding for how much work actually goes into producing a application. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I remember the first time I showed my first application, or my first small little mobile game to my friends and girlfriend and like all of that stuff, and they kind of just shrugged and said, yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, they had no idea that it took me many hours to produce that thing. I know it's crap if you compare it to the sort of stuff that they're accustomed to, but it's so hard for people to understand how a application on a phone or a desktop or something like that can be worth millions. If you think about Facebook's webpage or Instagram and so forth, there's a reason why these companies are worth millions and millions, if not billions of dollars. Do you think? And it's still just one application. From the perspective of the person consuming it, it's no big deal. I've been called up by friends of mine who have an idea for an app, and they start off the conversation by saying, oh yeah, it's going to be very much like Facebook, and I kind of just roll my eyes and I go, yeah, sure, you can call. And of course, and for them, this is hilarious, and for them, they think about it similar to me helping them move their apartment, and jokingly ask, like, how many pizzas do you need for it? Because in this person's head, this is literally the same thing. Moving an apartment and building something that is kind of like Facebook is very much the same thing. And this just kind of continues. It's a big problem. I mean, I would love us to have and I don't think that this is possible because it's such a, I mean, it's the same thing about art. It's the same thing in many situations where in art, as an example, nobody cares. If you're not into art, you don't care about paintings or sculptures or anything like that. They're all equal to you. They might be beautiful, but they're equal. It's only when you know that it's made by some dead person and worth millions or hundreds of millions where you actually start caring. Then your human primitive brain can appreciate the value, or like you get a different context. And the same thing I wish was true for software development. If we could very clearly make people understand that if you want to build something like Facebook or that web page, like that application, that is like asking a human being to build a skyscraper. One single person. It's pretty much the same thing because Facebook has hundreds of thousands, or at least let's say thousands of people working every single day to make that company a success, and that is their main product. So to ask a single person to produce something like that, or to expect other smaller companies to have an application that is at that level of quality, and especially when it's going to be free, is literally like asking them to build a skyscraper for free, or to figure out a way for you not to pay for it somehow. But most people don't understand that that is what they're asking for. That's the expectation. When in reality, most companies need to start out by building a small house. That's how it starts. You start to build a small house. Like most of the houses around the world are not skyscrapers. They are just regular houses. But that's the thing. We don't understand that. It's the same problem where you don't understand. It's easy for us to appreciate the value and the time and effort that goes into producing a really, really amazing supercar or Ferrari or whatever, right? But nobody really cares so much about those old-timey cars that most people drive around in, right? But they can understand the difference in investment, but they seem to be completely incapable of understanding the difference in investment when it comes to software development. So what I want you to take away from this is that, at least me, I think that it would be a very nice treat for us all if more people could start to appreciate the amount of work and effort that goes into application development. This is of course true for many professions, because people that don't really understand or don't have an insight into what actually goes into a profession, they will just do what I like to call it, which is automatic thinking. They just don't process the information regarding this area, and they just start having a mental picture that it's either easy or that something that they have inherited from somebody else is the truth. And that's a big problem, because that sets really weird expectations, and it feels very ungrateful to work for people like that, and to try to produce things, because you know that it requires almost like an effort that is enormous to impress anybody with software development or to make them happy. So that would be really great if we can fix this. I don't think that that's ever going to happen, because unfortunately we humans have a very primitive brain where it's easy for us to understand that the time it takes to build a skyscraper is greater than it takes us to build a small shed. That's easy for us, but to understand the same thing in software development it seems almost impossible. I asked my friends many times if they could understand that the value of the Facebook application, that app is worth, I don't know how many hundreds of millions, and you don't seem to be able to understand that in order to produce an application at that scale, you require an entire company. But then that doesn't seem to fit in your world. But you can understand that if you want to build a skyscraper, you need several teams of construction workers. It's not just one person. Have a great day.